Welcome to the explanatory video to accompany today's news release. RPM Valley Drilling confirms continuity of mineralized system with high-grade intercepts and remains wide open in multiple directions. So these are basically reporting drill results from the RPM Valley resource drilling that was completed in 2025. And here you can see the RPM deposit where there's three main zones, of course. And what we're talking today is RPM Valley. Previous drilling prior to last year's drilling. So all previous drilling looks like this. And of course at RPM, we have the RPM North Zone here. What we're discussing today is RPM Valley. And this, of course, is the previous drilling, and then the 2025 drilling, which was reported in today's news release, is here, those black traces there. And you can see most of it, in fact, almost all of it, was infill drilling to continue to prove up the resource. And some of the results we got there, very typical of previous RPM Valley drilling. Some highlights are RPM 081, 65 meters at 3.6 grams per ton, including 36 meters at 5.5 grams per ton, and half a meter at the highest grade we ever received at RPM, so half a meter at 364 grams per ton. So you can see there's very high grade, extremely high grade zones running through there, the RPM Valley as well. Other highlights include RPM 082 drill hole is 289 meters at 0.7 grams per ton. And that includes 40 meters at 1.2, 82 meters at 1 gram per ton. And so those highlights that I just mentioned there are very typical of the other drill holes that we reported there as well in this latest announcement. Now, most of that drilling was infill because most of the material is inferred. Here's the resource model at RPM, and you can see we only have measured and indicated here at RPM North. There are the block models on there, and all the RPM Valley was previously inferred. So this infill drilling should start to prove up resources into the indicated category, which is really significant, of course. So that will then, for the upcoming economic study, indicated resources can then be converted into reserves. So that was the main objective there. To prove up resources with infill drilling. Now, it's quite interesting. The deposit remains wide open there at RPM Valley. And one thing I wanted to show here is that you can see outside of the optimized pit shell, which you can see on the screen there, displayed at an $1,850 gold price from the previous scoping study. You can see there's quite a bit of mineralization hanging around and continuing outside the pit. That's this here. And so that, with an increased gold price, of course, in the next iteration coming up in this year, as well as resource extensions, in this case, down depth, and it remains open at depth, that should also improve this resource and make for a much more robust pit shells and pit optimization and economic study that we'll be reporting this year. So that's RPM Valley in a nutshell. One thing I want to touch on as well is the RPM glacial till zone. So this is just valley fill material that is eroding off of RPM North, and it's just, it's all crushed up, been eroded now, and it's just filling in this valley. And what we see there on that heat map in the surface sampling is a 1.7 kilometer strike length, approximately 300 meters thick, as well as up to 50 meters thick and 200 or 300 meters wide, and up to 50 meters thick. There of a surface anomaly that is running over a gram per ton and some very nice bullseye targets of over 2 grams per ton. So we did attempt to drill that this year utilizing our the Nova RC rig. We own that rig. And what we found is the results are inconclusive. And the reason I say that is because what we found is that the RC drilling method, we had some issues there, particularly with sample recovery, got low recoveries with the air compressor. with RC drilling, with the air, it was really pushing out the fines, and that being unconsolidated material. The fine material was a lot of material was getting pushed out into the cracks through the unconsolidated heap there. And so low sample recoveries. So that means, not very representative. The assay is not very representative. I mean, in the fines, we do find that we have a lot of gold in the fines. So if that was pushed out, then that would be not very representative, and probably a much lower grade than what the actual grade might be. As well as we drilled down, the unconsolidated material started to cave in on itself and lock up the drill rod. And so we got about 10 holes in there, and the highlight is RPM RC 009 hole. And we did get 33 meters at 33 meters at 0.3 grams per ton there. So, I mean, that right there shows you the potential, the heap leach potential. That can be heap leached there, and especially with the low mining cost, because it's already crushed up material, basically ready to free dig. And even if you put that on a heap leach pattern, and recall at RPM, we do get very good heap leach results as well. So it does remain as big upside potential for Nova, and it's one of our priorities. And we're looking at some other drilling methods like sonic drilling and these type of things to continue to test that zone and establish, hopefully in the future, the goal is to establish a large resource. So with that report for the RPM Valley drilling results, that concludes 2025 resource drilling results. That's complete. So in completion. So we've reported them all for RPM now. So thanks for tuning in, and more news flow to follow.